Hey everyone, welcome to your weekly college basketball bracketology update with America's number one bracketologist, Bracket Dom of bracketometry.com. 124 spots in the ESPN's Journal already. I say this every time, but I guess the point is, if you're looking at CBS or you're looking at ESPN and that's who you're using to figure out where your team is ranked, you're really looking in the wrong place. So make sure you follow Dom on X right now is where he's got the most up-to-date stuff at Bracket Dom. You can follow that. Then you know where your team is. If you've had questions, he's always taking questions. So head on over there now. And it's been 2 weeks, so it really should be a bi-weekly update since we met. And we're now under 5 weeks until Selection Sunday, the NCAA, which is hard to believe. It happens real quick. And lots of stuff going on, things which will probably make your job, I'm guessing, a little tougher than usual as a bracketologist. Like I think we'll talk about them some today. And since we last spoke, you said you expected Miami to be the last undefeated team standing. You were right. As Arizona falls at Kansas in Lawrence a couple nights ago. Eligibility rules keep moving around, which makes the NCAA selection process, I don't know, maybe a little bit more interesting. And so anyway, how's it going, Dom?
Going fantastic. Yeah, no, certainly a lot of moving parts as it is every year. They always find a new wrinkle to make this even more difficult than they have in the past.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially, we'll get into this, I think there's going to be even things that they don't even know how they're going to handle at this point. And
yeah, some unprecedented things. Absolutely. Yeah, so it might lay the groundwork for how this is ruled in the future if it ever happens again.
All right. Well, everyone tunes in because they want to see the brackets. So let's head on over and take a look at the brackets real quick here. And then we'll talk about this just briefly, and we'll hit it right into the number one seed. So right now you have as a number one seed, you have Arizona, then we have Michigan as the second number one seed, then Duke, and then UConn. So Arizona just took the loss. You still have them as the overall number one seed despite that loss. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I do think it was very, very close between them and Michigan now. Before, Arizona was that very clear number one overall seed. I still think they're the number one overall seed, and if you look at the metrics, Michigan actually has the edge in the majority of metrics, but it's really close. Obviously, they're 1 and 2 in most of the metrics, just kind of some one way, some the other. And really, the rest of the resume just gives Arizona the edge, even if Michigan is 1 spot ahead in the metrics in more places than not. Just the fact that they have an extra quad 1 win. That extra quad 1 win is in quad 1A, so it's one extra elite win as they would look at it. And the loss as well, when you're comparing two teams that only have one loss, when one of them's loss is on the road at Kansas and the other is at home to Wisconsin, that's a separator as well. So enough things keeping Arizona ahead right now. But again, it's close. It's only one extra quad 1 win. It's only one slightly worse loss, and the metrics aren't in their favor. So if someone told me that they had Michigan as their number one overall, I wouldn't argue too hard with them. Now, I would, though, if the current score of today's game holds and Michigan loses to Northwestern, then that would make my job a lot easier, and Arizona would be 1 and no one would argue it. So in a way, go Northwestern.
And what do you have as far as the breakdown between Duke? I mean, so Duke takes a loss against North Carolina. You have UConn lost to St. John's, I believe, recently. So is there a separation between Arizona and Michigan and those two schools? So as far as the overall number one, there's a separator. You've got sort of 2 tiers within the 1 seeds.
Absolutely. And I still think Duke, even with that loss, is still even kind of in a tier above Connecticut and Houston, who I think right now are the 2 teams fighting for that last 1 seed spot. Now, Duke, maybe in that loss in North Carolina, cost themselves a chance to be in that Arizona and Michigan mix, but I still think that they're pretty safe for a 1 as things currently stand. UConn, however, they're playing with fire, and they lost that game to Villanova before that loss to St. John's. They might be off it already. And Houston, as they always do, is just creeping up and getting hot at the right time. So, yeah, I would say Houston has a very good chance to nip UConn. Not there yet, but the resumes aren't too far apart between those two.
And then if we move back to the seeds, we look at the seed line at 2. You mentioned Houston already. Iowa State sitting there as well, the 2 line. Illinois, Nebraska. And of course, whenever we do this, there's always been some movement before the last time. And the 3 line, you have Kansas, Purdue, Michigan State, and the Gators from Florida. And the 4 seed, you have Gonzaga, Virginia, Vanderbilt, and Texas Tech. So talk about the 2 line. You've got Illinois and Nebraska there. Is that still where you have them? I mean, both teams have taken losses here. Do you
all three? Yeah, that's why I say it's really just Houston, UConn fighting for that 1 seed spot. Because since then, every other 2 seed is lost. Literally since I posted this yesterday, last night, Iowa State goes down, Illinois goes down, Nebraska goes down. So it's making the 1 seed race a lot more clear, but it's making that battle for the 2 and 3 seed spots very unclear. I mean, obviously Kansas just got an amazing win without one of their star players, or the star player, against previously undefeated Arizona. Purdue is the one that knocked off Nebraska. Michigan State, obviously right there behind them. That 2-3 line is an absolute mess. And you say where I would have them now, I'd have to do a deep dive again. I think it was fairly close already. And now with those results, without really breaking it down, I would say it's kind of a coin flip on that whole 2-3 line. So it's going to be probably a tough decision next week, or maybe hopefully the Saturday results make it a little bit more clear again.
And then you have Gonzaga kind of as a top 4 seed there. Is that where they're going to settle in? I mean, they had a loss now, and are they at risk of falling off there with another loss?
Yeah, I mean, with another loss and just the fact that they don't have that many opportunities for more great wins, I could certainly see them fall lower than that. A 4 seed does just seem right, though. Even if they were to lose maybe 1 more to Santa Clara or St. Mary's, but still win the West Coast Conference tournament, 4 seems about okay. And just with that bad loss they took, it certainly hurts their chances of moving up much higher. Maybe they could get a 3, but I'd say 4 sounds safe, because I'd be surprised if they weren't somewhere in that 3 to 5 range. So pick 4 right in the middle.
There you go. All right. Well, then of course everyone's favorite is and I always hesitate to post these because I feel like by the time these are on, they're gone. But the last 4 in, we've got the University of Miami, Florida, the Texas Longhorns, Oklahoma State, and then Cal is still. I think Cal's the only one that stayed in the last 4 from the last time we talked.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, that things always change from when that gets posted. And this one just changed probably about 30 minutes ago as Cal goes down in double overtime at Syracuse. Now, that's one, if you're a Cal fan, don't think the world is ending. That still is a quad 1 loss, which isn't the end of the world. That's not going to tank your resume. It sounds like Syracuse should be worse than the quad 1 loss, but it's not. But again, you still don't want to lose games to Syracuse when you're one of the last teams in the field, even if it is not a terrible loss, because you need to be getting decent wins over not terrible losses. And everything makes a difference when you're that close to the cut line. So Cal probably would be out right now, but again, not a bad loss. They could still easily see themselves get back into the field. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, they're the one that took a bit of a bad loss last night at Arizona State. They probably need to get themselves another quality win now to get themselves back in. So that bubble is always fluctuating.
And of course, then there's people on the wrong side of the bubble, which the first 4 out, which is Santa Clara, which is a new entrant here from the West Coast Conference. You got Vautech, San Diego State, and the Lobos from New Mexico. So you have 2 Mountain West teams that were in and now are on the wrong side of the bubble looking in.
Yeah, and Santa Clara is an interesting one. They have a quad 4 loss and they're a mid-major, usually a terrible combination. And right now they're barely hanging on to their only quad 1 win against St. Mary's. And if St. Mary's falls a little bit lower, that might not even be a quad 1 win anymore. So their resume is tough. I think overall there's a lot of good things on their resume. They've absolutely rolled against teams in the second quadrant. The metrics like them, even those results-based metrics, which are more important for selection. So I do think I would actually have them on the right side right now with some of those losses we just talked about with Oklahoma State and Cal. But I'm not as comfortable putting them solidly in like I'm seeing at some other places. I've seen a few other good bracketologists have them not even in the last 4 in and even slightly ahead of that. I would probably have them in my last 4 in now, but I still think they're playing with fire and need to finish the season strong. They can't lose both games to Gonzaga and St. Mary's down the stretch.
All right. So the next big question, of course, is Alabama. What does the committee do with Alabama? So for those following the news, of course, and we're looking at Alabama's Charles Bediako comes back from G League, plays a couple games despite the NCAA saying he's not eligible. Then it gets a temporary restraining order that allows him to play. Then that gets appealed by the NCAA, and the temporary restraining order goes away. So he's no longer eligible. He's no longer able to play. I believe at this point he's not playing for Alabama, because I'm sure it'd be crazy to play for him and play. They did play 3 games. They lost 2 of the 3. I think they were 1-2 with him on the team, I believe. So, I mean, there are people who are saying, well, that since Alabama played with a player who's ineligible, he's going to get thrown off. That that win will be vacated. I guess they count the losses because there were going to be losses if I suppose you vacated. It's a forfeit. I mean, how do you think the committee? Do you think there'll be some clarity ahead of time? Are you going to have some sort of hunch? I don't think either of us think that they're going to be kept out of the tournament because of this, like that they were playing with ineligible players.
I don't think so, and I think honestly, the fact that even though they won some games without him, the fact that it wasn't like the case of, hey, this guy came in, he was an NBA player and he started dropping 45 points every single game. And, it was just clearly obvious that how unfair and an advantage that was having this guy. Then I think there would have been more of a discussion. He came in, he just looked like someone that could have already been on the Alabama roster. And the games they won, I think they could have won the games without him, honestly. Sure. That probably actually shouldn't be the reasoning, but I feel like that might end up being the reasoning in a kind of unprecedented situation like this, where the committee is just going to kind of hope it goes away and they can ignore it and it doesn't become this whole thing. And I think that might end up being the case. I don't think there's going to be any seed line or any tournament ineligibility punishments. And maybe there'll be like some sort of bureaucracy punishment, like a fine or something, or taking away some kind of benefits that they have. But in the end, I'm still just going to address their resume exactly the same way as I normally would. I'd be curious to see. I kind of hope they end up playing well, because right now I have them right on the outside of my top 16 or my top 1 through 4 seeds, which the committee always does their reveal on. So I actually kind of hope that they play well up until that point, to where I would personally have them as a 4 seed. And then if that committee reveal doesn't have them there, maybe then it's a little bit telling, maybe they are punishing them a little bit. Or if they are there, clearly it doesn't matter. They'll be tougher to seed if they lose a couple until that reveal, and I would have had them as a 6 seed, and obviously they're not in that reveal. Now we have no telling of how the committee is going to address that, but my guess would be they don't address it and they just kind of treat it as it is, just especially because he wasn't really the reason they were winning those games.
Sure. Well, they didn't win many games with him, I guess.
Yeah, they lost to Tennessee with them, and they lost to Florida with them. And sure, they got those wins against some tournament teams, Missouri, A&M, Auburn with him. But again, those aren't elite wins, and those are teams they'd be expected to beat anyway. So, right. And it's not like, like I said earlier, it's not like he dropped 45 in those games where you can clearly say they wouldn't have won them without him. So I think they're just going to ignore it because they're hoping everyone else does, and this can get pushed under the rug, but we'll see. There really isn't any past precedent for it, so I can't say anything for certain.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because, your job is not just to predict who you think should be in the tournament, but your job is to predict who you think the committee is going to pick. And so you have to sort of, your part of your job is to get inside their heads and decide, and right? That's the challenge of being the bracketologist versus just a regular guy.
Exactly. Yeah, no, if I was personally doing like the bracketology is what I think it should be, I would punish them. I'd knock them down a little bit and I'd retract all those wins, but maybe not. I don't know. But in terms of the committee, I don't think there's going to be much. I think it's probably going to be a non-story by the time March comes around.
And they're not at any risk of not making the tournament at this point. They'd have to go on some heater of losing about like 6 or 7 in a row, right? They're based on pure resume alone, if you just completely ignore the whole situation, they're pretty much a lock to make it at this point. I suppose you could always have them lose every remaining game, but it would probably take something about that drastic. And so the next question is, I think another tricky one is, how do you evaluate Kansas with the on-again, off-again Peterson? Pretty probably arguably the best freshman, best player in college basketball right now. He's going to be probably a number 1 pick in the NBA draft coming up. Now, Kansas won without him when they hosted Arizona. That was at home, of course. but this is a weird situation. This guy, I mean, I don't know that you could trust him in your brackets going forward. Like, how much is he going to play? A lot of sort of weird stuff going on as far as not playing, with sick illnesses and muscle cramps, plays half a game. How does that affect your seeding, or is the seeding just independent of what he is? Because I know that, like, if he was your, say, 30-point game scorer, played every game, played full games, and then suddenly he goes down 3 games before the tournament starts, that will affect the committee's assessment, right? But this is a guy who's kind of like in out. I mean, how do you even evaluate? What are you going to do for it with Kansas?
I think that's one where, as long as we get to March and there's no indication that he's going to be sitting tournament games, it's probably not something that really is much of an evaluation. I mean, you could even argue on the flip side, like, oh, well, hey, they were able to win without him, and they lost some close games to some good teams without him. Maybe we should actually bump them up, because I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're actually going to get rewarded for how the results without him, but I don't think you can really punish them for that either. Because again, they're showing that they can absolutely win marquee games without him. And if he's expected to play when it comes to the tournament and he's playing more consistently, I think there's nothing else to do but just kind of seed him as the resume lies at that point. So, but yeah, we'll see once if he sits out like the Big 12 championship or something like that, and then we're wondering, hey, is he going to play at the start of the tournament? That's when it could certainly become a factor. But if he's playing every game down the rest of the way, then all this kind of weird on again, off again at the start of the season, I don't think is going to make any difference.
Interesting thing I saw announced today that the Big 12 tournaments can be played on that glass floor where they can project all those, various logos and everything with that. They're not actually going to be playing on wood, which will be kind of interesting. I think that's that's the future of what basketball is going to go to at this point. But anyway, should be pretty cool.
Yeah,
all right.
Will be interesting. I'll be curious to see if there's any controversies arise with that, like any players complaining about the floor or anything, but I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be cool.
As long as it doesn't look as bad as the Big 12 tournament floor looked last year, I think it was.
Oh, God, yeah. I think they probably did that on purpose last year. So like, hey, when we do the glass floor the year after, everyone will say it's a marketed improvement and don't even question.
Nowhere to go but up.
That floor horrible,
yeah. So then the next question is the MAC. All right, so Miami's still undefeated. It's the first time a MAC team has ever been the last undefeated team in the country, which makes sense because they're rarely, they're usually they play some bye games and they don't, can't get through unscathed the non-conference schedule. They're undefeated. Akron also has a pretty similar net ranking. I think they're about the same. Akron's a little bit worse, maybe by 2 or 3 spots. Is this a situation? I mean, how realistic is it that the MAC gets 2 teams in the field? If you had to put a percentage chance that you have 2 teams, what do you think it is?
Yeah, obviously, under 50-50 because Miami, Ohio is still going to be the favorite to win the MAC. And if they're the ones that win it, it's going to be a 1-bid league. Like you said, Akron is a very good team. And personally, I think that might be my pick to win the MAC tournament. But admittedly, it's a slight upset pick there. And if Akron does win it, that's when we have a very good chance of getting 2 teams out of the MAC. Miami of Ohio only has 7 remaining games they have to win to post an undefeated regular season. And if they win all of those, then I think we're pretty much locked for a 2-bid MAC if Miami, Ohio does finally lose in the conference tournament. And I even think at this point that they can afford 1 more loss. Now, if that 1 more loss is one of their 3 quad 4 games left, that's when it could get a little bit dicey. You lose that, the metrics tank a little bit. Then you lose again in the conference tournament. I would hope they would still be in at that point with only 2 losses, but can't guarantee it. But I do feel pretty comfortable actually, I'll even guarantee that if they lose 1 regular season down the stretch, but it's a quad 3 game, and then they lose in the conference tournament, they're getting in at that point. And Akron would be the most likely team to take their place if they were the ones to lose. So under 50%, but I think there's certainly a path for it. I'd maybe say 30, 35% if I had to put a number on it.
All right. So that brings us to the end of the show. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to head on over to X, get a hold of Dom, and you can do at BracketDom, of course, or you can get him on email, bracketdom@gmail.com. We'll definitely love to address your questions on your team and what they're doing. And so I guess make sure you continue turning in weekly. We'll be here. We'll be back. Make sure you subscribe or like and share the channel. So until next week, we'll see you later. Have a great week.
See ya.